You are listening to The Road Ahead. Welcome back.
Now, about international trade, it's interesting. If there is anything we have learned throughout the last few hundred years, that as way of ocean travel, I think I would go along with Professor Wang Gangwu's idea that modernity is maritime. It started with Columbus, if you like.
Yeah.
Right. The fact once we started traveling across oceans, globalization entered a new phase. And what was the characteristic of it? War and genocide and disease and so on and so forth. And colonialism and slavery and it's
all
nasty, nasty. So globalization is sort of the diversity of human life coming to terms with itself, if you put it that way.
Okay.
And we are right in the middle of it. It might take another 500 years before we reach some understanding. But as a historian, I would like to say that over the last 300 to 500 years, that was the beginning of humanity getting to know itself.
Right.
And it doesn't like itself very much.
Yeah.
So it starts killing itself.
Yeah.
Right?
Through the mixing, through the whole contact,
and we also see now that it doesn't even like the earth. It goes around, it thinks the environmental problems and so on. So now we've reached a point where the climate change idea is a serious one, in that we have changed the relationship between temperatures and water and air, and all that has changed, and we are not as mobile as we think.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So let's say the Shanghai storm of last month, was it? It's sort of much further north than something like that should have been. This kind of thing usually hits Hong Kong and so on.
Yeah.
It's now hitting
But it's
Shanghai.
hitting north,
So things like that are, to the earth itself, no big problem. The things that shifts a bit, it just balances the temperatures and also. But we are land animals. So Penang suddenly starts getting funny.
We feel the brunt more than what we...
Why do our trees fall nowadays so much? And, so very slight changes is enough for human life to suffer.
Yeah.
But we're digressing here. But so if we go back so I think we're at a point where we now know the whole world, right? So since the sun never set on the British Empire, where we have now rounded the world, and since then we're trying to not only know when I say we get to know each other, I also mean how do we control each other, right?
Yeah, of course.
And in the old days, the control could be colonialism, slavery, and so on. But in our day, that we have come to a point where you cannot suppress it. So the unipolar moment is not dying. It should have been gone a long time ago.
Yeah.
And for the US to keep one thing, the unipolar power today, they're just outdated.
Yeah.
They're into a wrong paradigm.
That's true. And and also the whole carnage, if I can use the word, just to keep that unipolarity, it's just unnatural. I mean, what is happening today is just unnatural,
Yeah, so it can't be stopped unless it gets pushed back. And what is good about the multipolar movement compared to the bipolar movement is that during the bipolar movement there was one pushback.
At least.
And that pushback came out of the West itself, in communism,
True.
right?
Yeah.
The multipolar movement today is a much more diverse one. And it can't be placed on ideology.
True.
In fact, back to what you were asking, it is placed on international trade. It's on economics now.
Yeah.
Right. So Brazil and China getting along is not ideological.
Yeah.
It's transactional. And then
purely pragmatic.
It makes sense for them to do certain things, currency-wise and so on, because the unipolar power is trying to control them. So they are at the point and say, we don't think you should control us.
Yeah.
But this is a new moment.
Yeah,
Not
this
very
is a new
long
moment.
ago, they can't even ask that.
Yes.
You can't even say that, right? So that is what is the multipolarity of our moment, right? So if we think of globalization and humanity coming to live in peace with itself, it stretches over it's going to stretch over 1,000 years or so. It's 400, 500, 600 years have gone when we kill each other and so on. Are we at a point where we can start have we peaked in our hating of each other? Can we
That's
now,
a very interesting question.
Can we now talk and allow each other to exist without killing each other? Just because I'm different, you want to kill me?
Yeah,
You know,
exactly.
that kind of idea.
Yeah.
You either want to kill me or you want to enslave me. What is this? Right?
Do you think we can ever get out of that?
I think we have to be.
As humans,
We have to be realistic about
Yeah.
power, though. So the point of when globalization came across the oceans,
Yeah.
so the relative power imbalance, the power imbalance between this one place and the one that is coming by boat, because technologically they're stronger usually, is that mismatch in power is going to be bad for the one that is weaker, and we call that colonization. Right.
Yeah.
You know, so certain countries that had some kind of political structure, like the Malaysian sultans, at least they had that, and so they had a voice that the colonialists could talk to, and then they could say, okay, you do what you want, I do you, as long as you let me do what I want. You know that.
So there was a contract-ish,
but
social contract.
You were enough of a partner to have a contract with.
Yep. Yes.
The tribals. You know.
Yeah. They are not even at the negotiating table.
So I think that has to be accepted. That was what happened. But then over the last 300-400 years, you do see that the countries that now seem to rise tend to be countries that know this. They used to be empires. They used to be polities, like China.
Yeah.
Or, you know, in the case of Brazil, there is a Spanish kind of thing.
Yeah.
So you need that ability to manipulate millions of people so that they think they are one. Back to my first point, right?
Yeah.
So millions and hundreds of millions of Brazilians say, oh, we are Brazilians, and the Chinese 1.4 billion say, we are Chinese.
We are Chinese, yeah.
So for that to happen, hundreds and thousands of years of manipulation must happen.
Yeah.
That's not something we can wish away. Same thing with the Americans.
You're right.
Right? So you have this, you know.
So yeah, I mean, I guess
we are regimented. We are civil soldiers.
Yeah.
We are civil soldiers, right? That's what a citizen is, lah.
Yeah. Civil soldiers, exactly.
Yeah. Civilian soldiers, right? And I think today, if we think that way, in a broader historical context, you have the sub-national, the national, the sub-regional, the regional. That is what multipolarity is going to be. It's not going to be a simple, like 1984, where you have a few poles and the world functions like that. But that is that kind of idea, of course, with Orwell, is because of the Cold War. So instead of 2, he has 5 or 6 or whatever, right? And there is some basis because it's civilizational, you have some basis, but it's going to be more complicated than that.
Got it.
And that's where ASEAN becomes important. Can ASEAN be one of these multipoles?
As a entity?
Can it be taken seriously by other poles as a pole?
Yeah.
Now, at the moment, it doesn't look like that. But I think if the Southeast Asian countries don't get that far, they're going to just be puppets. They're just going to be manipulated. True. Being small, you're bound to be manipulated at some level. It's bound to happen. It's how the puppet steers the puppeteer in the end, right?
Yeah, that's true.
Or the puppeteers. So to ASEAN. So now you mentioned Malaysian chairmanship. So because that's the closest thing, and we are Malaysians.
This is the opportunity that we have.
So we do think in those terms of what can Malaysia do given the picture we have just painted today. I have to simplify the picture greatly, of course. Now, when we want to integrate, ASEAN has been having integration programs for a long time, right?
Long time.
Now, if you were a country, the first thing you do when you want to integrate is what? You build infrastructure, right? Why is Sabah and Sarawak feeling so apart from us? Because we didn't connect them. Because we were just appropriating.
Yes.
So you didn't connect them.
Yeah.
Now, even Indonesia, I was surprised when Jokowi took over 10 years ago that the first thing he wanted to do was to build a maritime infrastructure. And me not knowing very much about Indonesia was thinking, you don't have that already?
Mm.
And they didn't. Now it goes back to colonialism in this case, I think,
Right.
in that and the British and the Dutch. It's about the seas, right? So when the
It's always
British
about
and
the
the
seas,
Dutch came, they knew that their power lay in controlling the seas.
Yeah.
And so all the locals were not allowed to control the sea. So the Bugis became land dwellers,
Yes, yes.
for
correct.
example,
Yeah.
right? And it became part of the Nusantara culture to no longer be so maritime.
Mm.
So they became coast dwellers more than island dwellers.
Okay.
You know what I mean? They're not Riau people, they're beach people.
Yeah.
they become river mouth people,
Okay.
and maybe even farmers to some extent. Because the sea is controlling the sea is important. So the South China Sea issue comes in. The Americans do not want anyone to think that they can control any part of the world's seas other than them.
Hence, what's happening in the South China
And
Sea.
that's why the South China Sea is that focal point.
Oh yes, yes.
Anywhere else, who controls the seas? The Americans.
The Americans, yep.
And it's only in the South China Sea where the Chinese say, no,
No.
haven't you seen the 9 9? You know, it's a fight on that
Yeah.
level.
It has always
And
been.
I would throw in, since we're talking about this, that if you look from the American continent,
Mm.
and where does the American cultural continent end? We sometimes think Philippines is actually there,
Mm.
right? And then of course Japan,
the
Korea, their
Korea,
allies and so
yeah.
on. If you see it that way, Pax Americana coming from the east,
Mhm.
the South China Sea is the frontier.
True.
Now we don't think of it as a frontier; it's just a thoroughfare of some kind. But
Because we're busy looking inwards, we don't look
geopolitically
outside
from-
much.
Yeah, geopolitically seen from Washington or California, it makes some sense that it that's how it's treated.
Yeah.
I think the Europeans traditionally don't do it that way, because the whole of Southeast Asia was sort of in the European mindset. This is Indochine.
Indochine,
you know.
yeah.
So there are paradigmatic
Mm.
differences in that sense, lah. So I think the multipolar moment is upon us again. Or
It's upon us, but I guess the point here is we have to realize that all these moving parts are moving very fast.
Yeah.
And if we still
Yeah.
look inwards,
Yeah.
we're going to
So-
miss the boat again.
And then
You
you
know?
become even more of a puppet.
Even more of a puppet, yeah. Even
Now,
more
so
so
next
now.
next year's ASEAN, I think, why I mentioned the infrastructure bit. Before the BRI,
Mm.
who was going to build highways for us? Nobody, right?
Nobody.
We couldn't. So our highway is like a big deal already from
Yeah,
north
yeah.
south. It's like, whoa, the best in the world kind of thing. But nothing much since then.
Yeah.
But then we are now at a time when this strong pole, China itself, is growing
Mm.
very, very fast. And so it has this idea, let's have the Belt and Road Initiative.
I think the US and the US tried to counter it with a blue dot network or something, but I didn't think it worked.
Well,
They were trying
I
to-
think the genius of this stage in Chinese development
Yeah.
is for them to, beyond building your country, you have to build your surroundings.
Of course.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So back to what I'm saying about what is national, what is
Mm.
regional, sub-regional, and so on.
Mm.
So if now, I think this is important to my own head anyway. If we allow for many tiers to how humanity organizes itself, and it's already happening.
Yeah,
RCEP and so on.
Of
You're
course,
trying
yeah.
to have all sorts of regionalisms, because that's how humanity has to function in globalizing
True.
the species. Let's see. Now, I would suggest to Anwar Ibrahim today, if I could talk to him on what to do next year as ASEAN chairman.
Mhm.
One of the suggestions he should put forth is to try to localize the Belt and Road.
Mm.
You discuss with China and the AIIB and so on.
Yeah.
At the moment, we are thinking still in national terms. Now, if there is going to be a railway going from China down to Singapore, it affects all the countries in between.
Yeah.
Those countries should work as one voice to localize, that's what I mean, to sub-regionalize
Mm.
the BRI, and that way talk to the Chinese we are building this road. Don't do it piecemeal too much.
Mm.
We, as part of ASEAN, sub-ASEAN as well, can discuss with you.
Mm-hmm.
So the railroad is one. There are other BRI projects that could be. That would be one way for the puppet to have a voice vis-a-vis the puppeteer.
Right.
You know what I mean? Nobody else is going to build
no one else has
infrastructure for us.
Yeah.
Now, of course, in response to the BRI, the Japanese had come up with that they would have high quality infrastructure and so on. But that is also first world talking to third world. What China has in this context is that it was third world not very long ago. It's probably third world still in many ways, right?
Yeah.
So there is a better chance of understanding the difficulties that little countries have in building highways. What I mean by that is that maybe Malaysia, say, or maybe Cambodia, we can't afford high quality highway. Let's have half bad highways first. That kind of thing. But anyway, I think that is just a reaction to the Chinese challenge.
Mm-hmm.
And so to the extent that the Chinese challenge is not going to go away, countries around here have to not only think geopolitically, we have to think geo-economic. We have to think geo-developmental. Geo-developmental maybe the word I would use.
Yeah.
So that
BRI is a good opportunity for that, as you said. Yeah.
It won't come again.
Yeah, it won't come again.
But because we are coming out of the bipolar world, so anything that is not Western must be challenged. And so, so I think we have to get out of that old phase of globalization to enter a new phase of globalization. And I think that's where Malaysia, Southeast Asia, people like us, Penang Institute, our job is to make sure that multipolarity works for us. And not just choose between multipolar or unipolar. That's not a choice. That's not a real choice.
Yeah.
That's not
completely agree. And I think this is the moment. And if I can perhaps summarize what we've been having this conversation about, is the fact that we are inevitably moving towards perhaps this out of the idea of the Westphalian nation state in our own mind, towards more regionalizing ourselves, going up that level to, as you said, through the BRI, through supranational institutions, through agreements like the RCEP, CPTPP, where that movement is inevitable. We are in a way forcing ourselves to actually work together, even in more closer terms, in blocks.
Since we have to work with each other, we have to build the institutions to facilitate that.
Yes.
And it shouldn't be only nation-state based.
Yes.
What I'm saying that our organization of humanity is multi-tiered. So America is a federation, even if it doesn't call itself that. It's federation.
Yeah.
China functions like a federation.
Yeah, it does. Yeah.
So it's multi-tiered. Everything is multi-tiered. But our language doesn't allow us to talk like that very often. We like to think nation state, sovereignty of country, and so on and so forth, right?
That's passé.
It's so if we could make ourselves think of human existence, let's say in 1,000 years, when we've finally come to terms with peaceful globalization, some kind of world government you might have, I don't know, and then you have subsidiarity is the key word here, where functions are carried out by the tier that is most able to do it.
Right. Okay.
Right. So you shouldn't centralize too much. You shouldn't decentralize too much. You sort of work out if you're going to have hospitals. Who can handle hospitals better? The central government, or the state government, or the provincial government, or the local government, whatever. So subsidiarity, I think, is a term that we should use more and more.
Yeah, and I think this conversation is definitely something that needs to be central focus for us moving forward. And I think also in terms of, as you said, the whole idea of having local institutions that serves the regional outlook. I think that's very important. We should not build institutions to look inwards, but build institutions to serve the higher purposes of integration and all
we
this.
say Malaysia,
I think that would be the graduation.
I think when we say Malaysia first, ASEAN second, you would at some level and in some areas be hampering yourself, because there are certain advantages that comes from ASEAN first.
Yeah.
Right. So I would like to think for all these member countries to think of regionalism of ASEAN as nation building by other means.
Yes, correct.
Asian building by regional means. If nation building is just within, it doesn't work. I mean, economically, we never do this.
No, not at
why
all.
is Singapore so successful? Because of international trade. It was one of those very few countries that when it became independent, it did not try to salvage its past or something.
Yes.
It just
went forward.
Went with it recognized that the powers that be were actually international trade, and at that time the international trade system was run from London and New York.
Yeah.
Right. So that is the forces that are, and then you go along with that.
Yeah, you go along with it.
And I think if there is a Singapore model that the Chinese learned, Deng Xiaoping learned, it is that. And so China succeeding was because it recognized international trade and the international trading system as the integrative element. It can provide the integrative dynamics that China after 1949 never had.
Right.
It never had it. That's why Mao couldn't succeed.
Deng
Deng Xiaoping realized you have to find this. What is this? And he saw that Singapore recognized it. And so let's bring it back to China. But China is much bigger, so let's do it by the coastal cities first. And then we mirror the West. We mirror capitalism. We mirror international capitalism. Whatever is needed, we will build. Yeah,
with our own flavor.
Yeah, well, that goes without saying.
Yeah,
right? So I think that has been played up. Chinese characteristics. It's natural.
It's natural. Yeah.
But you see the need for an integrative element. So the outside is integrated. It's been built over many hundreds of years. So when you build to mirror it, you are also integrated.
Yes,
to some extent.
Of course.
But for that to take place over decades, the Chinese Communist Party cannot allow itself to be challenged, because the plan takes too long.
True.
You see,
there shouldn't be any break.
That's how I would read it. And if they're lucky, they can keep the eye on the ball.
Yeah.
Over 3, 4, 5 decades.
Yeah.
That is their big challenge. Can they keep? Can the party? Now I won't say party. I think that goes into another conversation. It's a one party. The concept one party is a bit strange.
No,
right? The government is the government. And then they have a plan for development, and that's going to take 50 years and so on.
Yeah.
But during the 50 years, they're going to have change in leadership. Can the leaders remain focused, or will they get corrupted and be waylaid or lose direction? Right. That is their big challenge.
True.
Yeah. So I think international trade, and apart from that, I thought that was a given wisdom after the EU succeeded to some extent, that the way to stop war is to make each other interdependent economically, and then you're not bound to shoot yourself in the foot. Right?
Hence the OECD. The OECD was
you do it that way, and then suddenly in the last 10 years we have trade wars. What the hell is that? But it's again this unipolar
trying to
need for unipolarity.
Yeah.
Which is a vain concept in the long run. I think it should be seen as an anomaly, if not a lie even. Right? That's it. Right?
Yeah. Okay.
So having this idea that humanity has to be multi-tiered in its organizations, and that the nation state shouldn't always remain the default. Right, the defaultness of the nation state should be weakened. Is what by reality itself.
Okay.
And then we would then have that.
Have the layers of it. Okay.
Layered and then subsidiarity comes in because everything has to function. So at what level should it function?
Right.
Now in the Malaysian instance, we have since 2008 when Penang changed government, our big problem had been that why is so much centralized? We can do it better. Why are you doing it at
Yeah,
center?
exactly.
So in a little country like that, we have that problem already.
Yeah.
Imagine China, imagine the US, right?
Exactly.
So in the US, you have certain rules for carrying a gun, and then you cross the border, it's different
It is
again.
different.
You see what I mean? That is the nature of human organization. As soon as you go beyond a certain level, you're going to disagree.
True.
And so you might as well accept that you're going to disagree. Can we then functionally create a subsidiary system where it's function based? You do what we think you at your level can best accomplish. Something like that, I know in the end when you talk about the future and what's good for the future, it always comes out idealistic.
Well, it starts somewhere from an idea.
But it is also, as a historian, again, I have to say, what is the right time span in which to look at something? That's key. That's key. You have the wrong time span, you're going to come up with funny ideas. So that would be the first duty of a historian when he wants to talk about something. Let's say you say nation state and so on. What time span are we talking about?
Right.
Are we going to start from 1957, or are we going to start from the Malaccan years, or before, or not at all? I don't know.
Right.
And also space, not just the time. Then the space. Are we talking Malaysia or Nusantara, or are we talking what?
Yeah.
Because the picture changes every time.
Yeah.
So time and space, spans of time and space are key if you want to analyze and see alternative pictures.
Okay. Wow, that's a really deep conversation, and I think there's a lot of nuggets of great wisdom in that conversation. And I think those the audience who's privileged to actually get access to this episode would learn a lot about what are the things that we can aspire for. So, well, Dr. Ooi, thanks for taking the time to be here.
Thank you.
Really appreciate it.
Talk to you again sometime.
Yes, for sure, for the next episode. So, to know more about Penang Institute and its works, you can go to www.penanginstitute.org, and please, if anyone wants to leave us a comment, you can leave us a comment in the link. So, thanks for listening, and see you in the next episode.